Welcome to this episode of On Air. This is Eric, your host for this episode. Olivia has the episode off. I had the distinct pleasure of meeting Mark Messina, the vice president, and Adam Peters, the director of recruiting for a organization called QRF Up. This is a fantastic organization with a great mission. Their mission is around preventing veteran and first responder suicide. They're doing this through an application, but it's not like any application I've heard before. This is truly a proactive tool that will give you a clinician in your pocket. So I'm excited to talk with these gentlemen. They're both veterans. They've got an interesting and storied past. They are dedicated to this mission of QRF Up. It's a Midwestern-based nonprofit just up the road from where I served. They started with Minnesota as a beta test, and most of these folks are actually based out of the Des Moines, Iowa area, which is super cool, reminiscing on some of the things of my hometown, my area that I served as a firefighter. So, Adam, Mark, you guys are up.
Welcome to Yoga for First Responders On Air, where we break down yoga, neuroscience, resilience, and public safety in a manner that's authentic, educational, and most importantly, entertaining and lighthearted. I'm YFFR's founder, Olivia Mead. As a yoga instructor and neuroscience enthusiast, I'm passionate about supporting first responders and anyone looking to improve their overall human performance. Each week, we'll dive into a new topic and often bring on expert guests to share their insights and experiences. But we'll also keep it real and share our own stories and struggles along the way. So whether you're a first responder or seeking to master the science of mental and physical resilience, this podcast is your ultimate guide to triumph over life's challenges with unbreakable strength and unwavering fortitude. By pressing play, your training has begun.
One of the guys in the fire department I used to work for, he had nice long hair, not quite like yours, Adam, like a touch shorter, but it looked good too. And he was rocking the headbands. I tried to grow mine out and got to play like pickup basketball and stuff. And the cheap headbands work, but you're right. And then at some point though, you don't care. You just wear it and be like, I look great like this. Like, this is fine. This is okay.
In the back of your mind, you're like, I look fucking ridiculous and I know it.
Yep. Totally. I hit record because it's always never fails. I get onto this thing with some super cool dudes, and the initial conversation is the best, like, because it just happens that way. So I hope that's all right with you guys. And
yeah, you guys are good, man.
Yeah.
We don't really change when we're not recording to when we're recording. So
nope.
Like, yeah, nope. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I figured
two fucking crusty infantry guys out here.
So, well,
dude, I'm finally just getting over this sickness though, man. Yeah, bro.
Where you guys based out of?
I'm up here in Georgia.
Okay. And Florida.
Yeah.
And yet y'all are working with a company out of Iowa and Minnesota.
It's 2024, bro.
Listen,
yeah,
our entire
if COVID
team's
didn't
remote.
teach us anything. We can do it from anywhere.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Our entire team's remote too. Like our COO, she's in St. Louis. We've got volunteers all California, Florida, Seattle. So no, I get it. I hear you. So I'm a little bit curious though, because when I first met your team a couple weeks ago via Zoom, I was a firefighter in Iowa, and they were all like literally right in Ankeny, right in the area where I served. I was a firefighter in West Des Moines. So we were rocking, like, knowing the same people, same streets, everything else. And so
yeah, you ain't getting that with us, bro.
No. So what I'm curious about is, like, they spoke very, very highly of the two of you. So I'm curious how y'all got into this organization that we're going to talk about, because the goal today is to let people know about your all's organization and our network. And so how did you two get hooked up with this mission halfway across the country?
Yeah, man, it actually kind of all goes into succession, because about 3 months ago, I actually heard from an affiliate marketer for my company. They were talking to me, and it was Alyssa Chavez, and she was like, yo, Mark, like, you really need to talk to this nonprofit. Like they're preaching the same thing that you are out of Gray, and they're doing all this other different stuff. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, set me up a meeting, like, let's do it. You know what I mean? Like, I'll talk to anybody. I did some research about them. I'm like, all right, cool. Like, I want to host a fundraiser. I was already planning on doing a range day, in the same time frame anyway. So I'm like, cool, let me host a range day for them. I'll raise some money for them. I'm all about it. Right. Um, we went and did like an intro call, and I don't know, man, like half to three-quarters of the way through it. So they're like, so do you plan on being on our board then? And I'm just like,
Nice.
I guess that wasn't the plan, but yeah, I guess like I'm here, like let's figure it out. So started out, just kind of in like the communications and like marketing type stuff with them, and then building it in. And now I've kind of taken a jump over to more like the operational side and figuring that out. And then I got to do Adam's podcast, which was pretty legit, right? So through a mutual friend, that we have, I met Adam, and during his podcast, I'm like, dude, you should really come talk and help me out with some of this stuff over at Qrf Up. And then I just fish hooked him right into it. So and then here he
Nice.
is.
Nice. Nice.
Like, what's your take on that, Adam? Because
Yeah, what's your side of
Yeah,
the
man. I
story?
mean, I mean, really, that's how it went, dude. Chris reached out to me, saw what I was doing on LinkedIn, told me he got partnered with Mark that he had served with right after he tried to kill himself. So, um, I invited Mark on the podcast. Did a little partnership deal with Mark because I know that's kind of part of growing a podcast is getting sponsorship. Plus, I like what his company's doing to try and revolutionize the gear industry, particularly towards females, which I think is amazing. And he on live on the show, dude, he was like, you need to come and I need some pipe hitters over here at this nonprofit. And so for me, it was like, yeah, I'll take the meeting. I took the meeting, dude, and it's everything that I've been trying to build on my own. So they just play off of one another. And
Right.
I'm just leaning all the way in, man.
Cool.
Like this is like my life's work, and it's meaningful, and it's for me, it's like very kind of therapeutic and like
yeah,
saving the communities. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it continues to help me heal, and so yeah, that's literally how it happened. He just hooked me right in, and here I am.
Yeah.
And now we keep doing stuff like this and
yep.
becoming really fast friends, and I get to learn a ton from him in the business world. So man, it's been awesome.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so for those that are listening, we've got a couple of sexy voices. Like I'm thrilled to have good sounding folks on the podcast. Like it's usually myself. And so I'm going to go right back to you, Adam. Like introduce yourself. Like who are you? What's your history? We'll get into the organization here in a minute, but tell me your story first.
Yeah, man. My name's Adam Peters. I joined the Army in 2003, was medically retired in 2015. I was an infantryman. I wasn't anything special, had a largely mediocre career. Medically retired after 4 deployments, three to Iraq, one to Afghanistan. Spent a lot of time in what I call a transition hole. Got hooked up with another veterans charity that changed my life. Started my company, The Strategic Veteran, which is a podcast and a paid community teaching veterans about entrepreneurship. And my way to give back, start the 22 a day. I've opened a lot of cool doors for myself, and just want to kind of help others do the same thing for themselves, man. And met Mark, and so grateful for that. To because of him, I'm sitting here with you now. Like he's one of the doors that was open for me. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's cool. And Mark, what's your story, man?
Yeah, not far off Adams too, right? So I just recently was medically retired from the Army after about 15 years in September. So I'm still pretty fresh on the
Yeah.
getting out train, right? So I'm coming up on a year. And then yeah, got out of the Army, struggled for a little bit. Realized when I took a kind of hard look at everything through, my retirement phase and all that stuff too, right? Is like I don't know, was the juice really worth the squeeze, right? Like
Mm,
the sacrifices that we made turned us into the men we are today, and that's okay, right? There's nothing wrong with that. I'm proud of the man I am today. Um, but at the end of the day, like was the sacrifices made throughout that entire time? Did it equate to anything that was actually tangible? And I didn't have a real good answer for it. So I started my company, which is Gray Group Tactical. So we started a little bit more into the innovation in manufacturing space. And now we're branching into everything. I might have taken on a little bit too much. Like, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
just a minor amount. It's just, 90 to 180 hour weeks. It's fine. You know,
It's
these
fine. It's
dark
fine. It's
circles
fine.
are
Yeah.
real. So I'll be all right. I'll be all right. It's fine. But yeah, no, man. We are though. We're getting out. We're doing a lot of really great stuff, and you know, same thing. Like I just found myself in a point too where I'm like, hey, man, like I've got to do something that actually fucking matters,
Yeah.
and I didn't find that yet. And I'm finding that with, you know, integrating and mutually supporting things with my company and then the nonprofits that we work with, right? And that's really what brought us into Qrf Up, just like I had said earlier, right? I just came in to run a fundraiser for them. I'm like, hey, I'll help you guys raise money. Like I like what you're doing. I'm hearing great things. Like, yeah, dude, we'll go to a range day. You know, like I can put a range day together in an hour. You know what I mean? Like, let's go. But yeah, we started doing that stuff, and you know, now I'm, you know, up there in the organization. So, and you know, Adam's pumping in and rocking and rolling as a communications director, and I'm bringing some more pipe fitters
Recruiting.
over. Yeah, recruiting. Jesus, I'm so sorry, dude. I'm still getting over my sickness. All right,
I know.
guys, it's rough.
I still love you. It's okay.
It's rough. Um, but yeah, man, and yeah, dude, he's killing it in recruiting though, honestly, man. Like you're right. Like recruiting and communications and marketing, I feel like it's all the same at this point. Maybe it's just blurring together for me. Um, but yeah, man, that's about it.
Yeah, cool. And so the organization that we're talking about today, so I won't lie, like I'm not from the military. I don't have my stepbrother was in the 82nd Airborne. He served there. I served my community through the fire service and then now through the nonprofit that I help run with my wife. And so when I first this came across our desk, through social media through a DM like a month ago or such. Like, hey, you
Yep.
guys are cool, doing cool work. We should figure out how we can collaborate. And then we've had several meetings since then.
Yep.
And I've heard both of you say the name of the organization now as QRF Up.
Yep.
And I won't lie, I've been racking my brain for the last 6 weeks or so trying to figure out what the hell QRF Up stands for. And so I realize that now I had the space in
Yeah.
the space in the wrong spot. So because I'm completely naive and I won't lie to that, I'm curious what QRF Up stands for.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
man.
So
Go ahead, Ed.
QRF up in the military. So QRF up is quick reactionary force. So if you get in the shit, right, you're calling for QRF. It's a unit that's staged, ready to go. So that's what we are. QRF up, man. Quick reaction force up to help veterans and first responders in crisis.
Yeah.
It's time for our brothers and sisters to stop taking their own lives.
Yep. 100%. Like that's why we have yoga first responders. I'm excited to tell you guys a little bit more about what we do if you haven't got to research us at all too and have this conversation a little bit. Because the missions are so congruent yet different. Like and that's what's exciting about partnering up and working with you guys and being a resource on the app and that kind of stuff is kind of the direction that we're heading as we move down the road. And so tell us a little bit about what you guys do because I actually come from the health and wellness space in the public safety world. And I think we're missing what you guys have to offer, which is why I think this is actually a really, really strong suit because we have folks that are not as proactive as where I think y'all are heading. And that's what makes me super excited about what you guys are doing. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
right. So
Um,
tell the audience a little bit about like the
so
strategy. Yeah.
QRF Up it's an application. All right. Like we always, you know, in this day and age, everybody carries a cell phone in their pocket. They all have their smartwatches, they have everything, right? So we are taking that and we're using it in the mental health space, right? And obviously there's a lot of other places out there that do that. But the difference is what we're doing is we're taking a niche market, right? And we're target marketing and focusing on active duty service members, veterans, and any of the actual emergency responders and first responders that are out there and dealing with those traumatic issues, right? Because at the end of the day, we understand what PTSD really is, all right? And it's not what everybody immediately puts this, you know, stigma to of what it is in combat PTSD and everything else, right? So and both Adam and I both have PTSD, and we can sit here and tell you that, right?
Mhm.
So we were like, hey, look, you know, you're driving down the car and, you know, you get into a really bad wreck. You're going to change the way you think about driving, right? It's going to alter that view, and that is a form of PTSD too. So, but we're taking that and having people understand that first off, and then putting it directly towards our target market to try to take some of the actual weight off of these main resources such as 988 or, any of the other main sources that you're calling in for suicide. All right. I know specifically 988 back in May, and we're still a little behind on picking up numbers, but they dropped over 58,000 phone calls.
Mhm.
And that's
When I
that's a lot.
when I heard that stat when I first started talking to
That
your
is a
teams,
lot.
my mind was like blown, honestly. Like that they've dropped 60,000 calls. Like that's insane.
Well, what's even more insane is the cash infusion that they got.
Yeah, the 700
$700
million.
million. And they're
Ah,
dropping 58,000 calls a month.
so the money came before the dropped calls. Like they should have had an infrastructure built out and
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
still dropped 60K, thousand
Hey,
phone calls.
I'm not an
That's
expert
insane.
on it. I'll take that. That's my opinion.
Yep.
But $700 million, you shouldn't be dropping 58,000 calls. I don't care, how you try to explain that away.
Well, listen, like I'm in the nonprofit space. I'm going to toot our own horn. Like we have a stated goal in our nonprofit to put 20 million bucks in the bank, not
Mhm.
700 million, 20 million bucks in the bank. And based on our math is we could give our services away for free to public safety in perpetuity. Just like,
Yep.
like, so $700 million and we're still dropping 60,000 calls. Like that's insane.
Yeah. Well, and
I
it
just
it
had to I
just
just had to say that.
yeah.
Sorry.
No, yeah, you do.
uh,
And honestly though, that's why you've got guys like Adam and I here, because
yep.
we're willing to say the hard truth about stuff,
Yep.
because it is the truth, right? And so we're building this application out though, right? So it has a hot button on it. And whenever any of the folks that have it are in a point in their life or in that flight or flight point, they can hit that button and it puts them directly in contact with a mental health provider. All right. And those are all going to be regionally located depending on the space of how we broke it down. Right. So it'll set them right up with them. And then that mental health provider has an option. Right. They're like, hey, we were able to kind of de-escalate the situation with you. We are able to kind of talk through it, work some of, our cognitive therapy techniques, and we were able to slow things down. I'm going to put you on a timer, right? And we're going to hold on to that timer. Let's say it's 2 hours, it's 8 hours, whatever the metric meets for them, right? Based on the call, because obviously they do have metrics that they have to follow
Sure.
and do. Um, and then that veteran or first responder or service member or family member has to call them back, that specific provider, and do that check-in again to make sure that they're still good, right? Um, Now, if they fail to meet that time frame and call back, or that mental health provider is like, hey, you know what? I don't think I can de-escalate this over the phone. We need to send somebody out there to go help them get to the next level of care, right? There, it's what they're going to do. They're going to send one of the internal responders for Qrf Up. All right. So now the thing that I generally, and this is probably my favorite portion of the application itself and why I jump so hard into it, is that it gives you an option in the app, right? To where you can alert 911 or not. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, and I know a lot of that in the first responder world, right? Is like, oh, why wouldn't you want 911 to come help you? But case in point, you're a police officer, right? Like you're a firefighter. If you go in for PTSD, you're going to get pulled from your job. You're going to lose it,
Right.
right? Like same thing for military members. I go in for family counseling. I can't do what I'm doing anymore. That's a real thing. You know what I'm saying? Like I lost my career
Yeah. That's
because I
crazy.
went in and asked for help.
That's quite frankly, that too is insane. Like,
Right.
let's be real.
So, you know what I mean? And that is real. Like I lost my career because I said I needed help.
Damn.
And everybody wants to preach that it's all about the soldiers and it's all about the family members, it's all about that. And it's bullshit. It's a lie.
Yep.
It's a lie. So this is what we're doing to protect people in those positions. Now, the other side of that too is, right, when we're in our fight or flight moments and you show up and it's three or four cops, right? Because, they're like, oh, this big white dude with tattoos has got a gun and he's, losing his mind, right? Um, they're going to show up in force. They've got a
Right.
protocol. They've got to protect themselves. I'm all about it. I totally get it.
Yep.
But when I'm in that fight or flight response, that's not going to go the way that you think it is because I'm not rationally thinking through those problems.
Yeah.
So, and it's going to be an issue. And I've got three friends right now in jail and, well, prison at this point because they assaulted a peace officer
Right.
because they weren't in the right headspace to do that. Right. So now it's going to be, a guy like Adam or I or yourself showing up and be like, hey, brother, like, look, dude, I know you're having a bad day. That sucks. And, like, we're going to talk about it and we're going to figure it out, but you're going to come get in my truck and we're going to go down and we're going to get you some help. And I'm going to be there to support you with it because we got your back. And that's what it is. And that's why our recruiting effort is so crucial.
Yeah.
So because we need to be recruiting more people like us to get out there and do the right thing and just be better, man,
Yeah.
and support our community.
And so I've got
It's
like
a,
chills hearing this, and this is what separates and why I'm so excited to like have you guys on and talk. And so, Adam, just real quick, if you don't mind, is that it's that quick response button. Because there's other apps that we've partnered with out there that like we're a resource on their app, but that's all it is. It's a resource for cops and firefighters, and it's a directory. Let's be real. It's a directory of things they can go to and things they can do. And when I heard about that quick response button, like if you're in the shit right now, you hit that button and you get that connection, like that's more proactive than anybody else because y'all are it's you hit a button, you get the answer, the call answered. You don't have to go to your directory and be like, let's see which one of these people I should talk to, or which should I do some breath work or yoga today or whatever. It's like you hit the button and boom, we're there for you. We'll figure it out together. Nobody else is offering that, and that's what separates you, and that's what's fucking cool, in my opinion. So I didn't mean to cut you off, Adam.
no, you're good, man. I just wanted to say I refer to it as a therapist in your pocket. It
Yep.
takes away some of that embarrassment of, I don't know how it was for you coming up, Mark, because I came in a little bit earlier than you did, but hearing how you had your career ruined because you asked for help. I saw that my entire career. I was taught at 17, 18 years old that we don't ask for help. We don't go get help. And so that was ingrained in me for so long. And so now we carry that with us when we get out, and it's embarrassing. And you're taught that you're weak if you ask for help. And that's what we're here to change, man, because having that button on your phone, you can lock yourself in an office like mine and you can push that button and you can talk to this therapist immediately and get everything off your chest. And let's be real, nobody ever has to know. I mean, we are setting up things on the back end, like integrating with My Healthy Vet so that there's continuity of care, that you can, all the aftercare stuff we have planned to really get you in with a therapist on a regular basis and not have to wait months. We're talking days, right? Obviously at some point, some people will have to know, but you have some control in that with an application on your phone. You get to take the first step on your own terms and not have to feel so kind of the way you were taught to feel about that. And I
Yeah.
think that's important. And that's why I'm here, because I can't keep picking up my phone to notifications of some of the best men and women I ever served with taking their own lives.
Yeah. No, that's just exactly it. I mean, that's our why too. So, is that there's ways so we're a proactive mental health and wellness training. So we try our best, honestly, fellas, not to get lumped in with EAP or peer support. Those are usually who we do get lumped into just because agencies have no better way to like integrate us into their system. But we actually make sure that people know like we're the training for the training. Like if you start to implement some of these proactive resilience tools in place, like from day one of academy or basic training or whatever it is, rather than waiting for the red alarm bells to be going off, like that's where we should be doing this shit is up front. And so you guys are taking the same approach. Like you're there on people's phone before they need it, and then it's like when those internal alarm bells go off. And so I had a perfect story. I had a guest on our show that he was a lifelong meditation, breathwork, yoga practitioner, went through the police, was a police officer, then became a firefighter. Typical story, family spiraled, life spiraled, all that. Ended up in his pickup truck with his pistol in his mouth. And it was for that moment that he clicked back into his breathwork and mindfulness training to stop the amygdala hijack in the moment. But then it was like, okay, what's next? Like, and he got himself, so he at least got the pistol thrown away, but to be able to then hit that button and have a therapist on the line with him right there, boom, that's it, right? That's it. So
Yeah, man. Yep.
power,
Dude, and
powerful stuff.
I love that you want to come on board because I'm a benefactor of a charity that taught me the meditation and the breath work. And I can't believe that nobody taught me that sooner in my life. It's so amazing the power behind that stuff. And so, adding that to our partnership and being able to send guys to you to get that help, man, that's going to change so many lives, dude. And it's just so exciting that we get to do this.
Right? Yeah, and that's the power of God and the universe, or however you believe it or spin it, is the fact that all of a sudden the three of us who have completely different backgrounds and stories and trajectories are on the same phone call, getting to work together and changing the lives. And we never know. And that's the other part of what we do, right? Is that we'll never know the impact that we'll have on people, and that's okay. That's okay, because that's not why we signed up. We signed up to have the impact without necessarily knowing. So you both hit on a couple of really interesting pieces that I just want to dive into and pull a thread on a little bit. Because with the organization, fantastic organization, we'll get at the end as far as like how people can find it, because this is too is starting to be rolled out. Like this, y'all are in your launch phase, if I may say, if I dare say,
Yeah.
from what I heard. So that before I tease a little bit more personal threads, where are you at? Where are people finding you? How are people getting connected today with what y'all are doing?
Mark, you want to take this one, and then I'll chime in after you're done.
Yeah. Yeah, I got
Because we're
that,
kind
man.
of all over the place, man. We're ironing that stuff out right now.
Yeah, no, and that's cool. I mean, and that's why we're here. We're all here, but I want people to know about you guys from the beginning. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So absolutely, you can definitely get on and find QRF Up at, it's just www.qrfup.org. And then any of our social handles are just at qrfup.org. So that's where we have majority of our stuff getting displayed right now. If you are looking at any of the recruiting stuff, I'll let Adam get into that. Because he's got it all, you know what I mean? So, but just the basis, we are fixing up the website right now. We are currently adding merch out there as well. So I've got some folks from my company going in and deep diving and working that and getting that all set up and designed for them. Um, so that way they have some residual cash flow that's coming in, right? Because at the end of the day, like, as much as we all don't like to talk about it, but money matters. All right. We need donations. We need additional cash flow coming in outside of grants, outside of all those other things that have super red tape against them to actually get things done. All right. Because the goal of the organization is to cut through the bullshit
Yep.
and circumvent all the red tape. So the more we can do with that, the better we're going to use it for, and that's really what it is. So we will have a hot button on the top of it for donations as well as recruiting, which I'll let Adam know. So that all should be up by Monday, if anybody wants to go and take a look at it.
Sweet.
Yeah, man. And then in terms of recruiting, I'm running a 90-day social media campaign right now to get as many recruits as possible. So you can find us. There's a big push on TikTok right now. That's at qrfup.organization, or it might still say qrfup.adam. We're trying to change it over to a business account, so it's all kind of messed up. And then I promote through my personal social medias for QRF Up because it was just easier that way than kind of trying to start brand new accounts. So my Instagram's Pete0585. I know, real original, right? Like the Facebook is the Strategic Veteran, which is my company, but they're so ingrained at this point, it doesn't really matter. This is not a shameless plug for my company. I'm all in on QRF Up, and that's my main focus. So that's the main places you can find our recruiting efforts: TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook right now. I
And
talk about it a little bit on
who's
LinkedIn, but not much.
yeah, who's your ideal like recruit?
Any honorably discharged veteran or first responder.
Cool.
That's it. Must be honorably discharged to be on the response team. But we do help anyone and everyone, regardless of their discharge status. I believe we also help their family members as well, right, Mark?
Mark
saying yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was muted because
You're good.
I've got a 120-pound Doberman that likes to jump against the door. So I try to play the mute game. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, we will help anybody, their families, that's still currently serving active duty, National Guard, reserves, any of that stuff, any type of first responders, that come in, to include some of the hospital staff and different things like that too. If they need help, like, we're here to do it. And as well as their families, right? So we understand that incorporating not only just the individual but families as well too, to get that holistic picture is crucial and incredibly important. Because I know for me, if I'm in a fight or flight, I'm not thinking about punching that button. But you know what I mean? Like my son will be there and be like, Dad, it's hit, talk, right?
Yeah.
And hey, single dad lives matter, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, no, it's there for everyone to get in it, because we understand the traumas, we understand the PTSD that comes with all of those jobs, because it's hard, man. And that's what we want to hit at.
Yeah. No, well spoken. This is awesome. So I'm going to pull a couple of personal threads, if that's all right, just to get a little bit raw with the conversation, because we have a lot of public safety folks on here, honestly. We've dabbled in the military. We actually had some pretty good success with the Army and Air Guard units for a while. There's more and more yoga and mindfulness happening in military at this point. But while we have a specialized protocol for public safety, it tailors and moves into military very, very well. But there's other organizations out there serving that population. So, but I just want people to hear, because there's the thread that I want to pull, two of them. First one, you both mentioned it, especially you, Mark, that when you discharged back in September, you went through a struggle phase. And I'm curious if it's because of that sense of identity after having been. So I'm looking at Adam's face too, and I feel like I'm hitting a nail or pulling a golden thread here, because we deal with this all the time in public safety, right? I was on the truck for 13 years. I made the personal choice to leave to serve in a different capacity, and it still sticks with me to this day. Like, oh, I could be on that truck rolling with my buddies and that kind of stuff. And so both of you had a similar reaction when pulling that thread of loss of identity. So Mark, you were the one that
Yeah.
teased it out to start with, so I'm gonna cue you up
Yep.
first, man.
So, I guess I'll take a very long story and summarize it, right? But so again, I was medically retired, right around 15 years in the Army. I was working very, very well above my pay grade at that point. Um, and I had a lot of responsibilities. I was at one point in charge of an entire task force over 7 countries, and we had 12 different teams operating all over the place. You know what I mean? Like, and it was a big deal. Um, so, and overnight, after I come back from that trip and realized that I was in a point that I needed to step away. Um, and one of my good friends and mentors is actually the one who kind of forced me to go do it, truthfully. Because I didn't want to do it, because I knew the implications that I could lose my career for it. Um, but I went and did it, and well, lo and behold, I lost my career for it. But during that journey, I was able to learn a lot about myself, and I did about 6 months for it was an outpatient program, but I was there, 8, 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, and I was going through this program. It took about 6 months to actually get all the way through, and then when I finally got all the way through it, I was, on my way out of the Army. So, um, but in that time, I learned so much, not only, excuse me, about myself and my mental health journey, but what the Army really did and looked at when you went through that. And I think that's really kind of what teed off my identity crisis. Because I already had a bunch of trust issues with a lot of stuff, right? Like a lot of trust issues there. Loss of pretty long-term relationships and marriages and a lot of other stuff. But it's all the same wherever we go when it comes to those things. But I watched everybody that I was in charge of or was in charge of, part of our organization or anything like that, really just kind of cold shoulder you and push you aside. And it went from like, okay, I was sitting in these top five huddles, you know what I mean, and making decisions that are going to affect, 2,000 people on a daily basis, to, like I'm the broken toy in the corner. And that was pretty tough. And then on top of it, I was going through my mental health journey myself, and that was something where I kind of realized too, and also another big reason why I got into QRF Up was that I had to do a loss history graph, right? So as I was going and doing my loss history graph, one of my things that we had to specifically write about is when other friends had committed suicide and where they were. And after I got through it, I realized that I had 39 of my close friends commit suicide.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a staggering number, right? Like it's dramatic. And these weren't people that were just, like, oh yeah, we were in the same organization, we are in, whatever. Like, no, like I knew them, I knew their families, I knew their wives, I knew their kids. Like I knew we'd been together, we had, been to barbecues, we'd had beers together, we knew each other intimately. And it changed something in me. So when I finally left the military and I had that and I had that understanding under my belt, right? Because I figured out why though, right? Like, and I came to the conclusion, at least under my sense of like why so many guys are doing it. And it's simply because, we get out and just like Adam said, we're not raised to, talk like that or put our emotions out or do any of those other things either. We're meant to sit there and compartmentalize and continue on mission and do whatever we're doing. So when you step out of that zone, you know what I mean? And now you've got all this shit boxed up in front of you and you can't even walk without tripping over it anymore. You got to start unboxing it. You got to start unworking it. And you got to start doing those things. But as you're doing that, right, like the rest of the world doesn't stop.
No.
So, so now I'm in that situation as I'm out of the military, right? I just took custody of my son. I sold my house. I moved up like 2.5 hours, 3 hours up north. I was completely isolated, completely exactly what they tell you not to do is what I did.
Right.
Um, right. So like, and then it took the Army 7 months to pay me, right? Like I didn't get a paycheck on top of that.
Yeah.
So, what I mean? Like I just started getting paid. I still haven't gotten my back pay for my retirement pay. You know what I mean? Like that's real. And most people would have fizzled out and been in the same boat that I was. But I think for me, when I was in those stuck points, it was that motivational and understanding of why these people are removing themselves from that equation. Because you know what I mean? Like if you're the one who's constantly hurting everything you love and care about around you because you fail to regulate your emotions and fit within those, social normal boxes that everybody wants us in,
Mhm.
well, you know what I mean? Like, I guess I'm the problem. I should remove myself from the equation, right? And that's why, at least in my opinion, why a lot of guys fall down that rabbit hole and where they land. So I made it, a sense to where I'm just like, dude, like I have to keep myself out of that mindset and just keep driving. And I ended up with a company and on a bunch of nonprofits. And I guess I, just dove myself into that. I don't know if that's the healthy thing either, but here we are.
Yeah. And I think your nonprofits and your company re-deliver that sense of purpose and that identity that you were then looking for, right?
Yeah.
Like yes, you may be, as you say, like unhealthily working at 90 hours a week, 200 hours a
Yeah.
week, but you're reestablishing that community, the
Yeah.
purpose, the identity, all those things that,
And control. You know
and
what I
that,
mean? Like
right.
we're giving control to chaos.
Yep.
And I think as senior non-commissioned officers, right, like that is what we do is we provide control in chaotic situations, right? And the same thing for firefighters and the same thing for first responders, everybody.
Yep.
That is what we do. We look at a panic-stricken and chaotic situation and we're like, okay, well, here's the problem. Here's how we fix it. Here's where I need to put people to get it done. Let's go.
Right. And the general population, does it, I'm going to speak a little frankly here too. Does it ever drive you crazy when you just watch people just like flip back and forth on a seemingly simple decision? You're like, can we not just make a decision to like move
Yeah.
forward with this? Like, please.
Yeah.
uh,
And I think that's something too that we can touch on and talk about later too is, and our decision making abilities. And so I think PTSD, obviously we get a bad stigma, right? We get a bad stigma about it because everyone's like, oh, it's the shell shock. They just freak out and they are going to do a bunch of bad shit, right? But really it's just you look at it from an aspect that, hey, like we're going to change the way we think about things. We're going to change the way we handle things. And we don't look at friction points and problems or things like that as absolute game stoppers or show stoppers, right? Like Adam and I talk about it all the time. We're like, dude, I got this problem. And I'm like, oh, cool, I got a guy. Check this out, and I plug him into somebody, and or vice versa. And I'm like, dude, Adam, I got these kids running amok on social. What do I do? And he's like, oh yeah, dude, I got it. Like, look at this. Here's how you should handle it. And I'm like, all right, cool. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and it's something that we just realize that we can lean on one another for, and just figuring out solutions, man. And then stop fucking about and just get it done. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, just don't sit there and play games about it. Like, all right, cool. Like, my boy just gave me a solution. I'm gonna go do it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, and vice versa. So
Yeah. No, it's maddening in some aspect how many hours we waste in committee meetings and everything else for work once in a while. So not this work. I have a full-time job that shall remain nameless. But anyway, so Adam,
Yes, sir.
you made a powerful look when we started talking on that loss of identity, loss of purpose piece. So
Yeah, man, it's just because
dive into that for me. Like, what
yeah,
was that? What was that about?
we're on the same page, man. Through doing the work I do with my company, I learned a lot about this by talking to other veterans, and that's the conclusion I came to is the biggest problem we have is the military is really good at keeping us in that fixed mindset, right? Like one job, be the best you can at that job. Don't do anything that's not within the scope of that job for that one mission, for that one team, right? Like, so for us, that was the Army. That was GWAT largely for both of us. And that was as infantrymen. And so, like Mark said, the day you come down on orders to be med boarded out of the Army, you are thrown off, in my case, to a completely different unit just to get off the books as fast as possible, and they forget about you. They don't care about you anymore. So it's very much about that loss of purpose, one, but also the loss of identity because of that fixed mindset, because of most of us come in at a really, really young age. My case was 17. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I didn't get out till I was 30. What else do I know about being an adult? I know
Right.
how to be an infantryman and I know how to be a damn good one, right? And that's really all I know. So we tend to, when we get out, let that consume us, if you will. Like that's all we know how to identify as. And my theory on that is because we haven't ever been shown the way to sit with ourselves and figure out what really resonates with us. We're not taught how to network. We're not taught how to explore, particularly as enlisted guys, right? We're not told to explore options outside of, typical infantry skills, right? Like when I was in, it's you need to go get a ranger tab, you need to go to airborne school, you need to go to air assault school. Oh, did you get your EIB, right? It's not did you know digital marketing's a thing? Did you know, how a company works? Did you know that that's an option for you? Well, it turns out that it's really a lot of fun and I'm really good at it and I really enjoy it. And if you would have let me explore that or taught me how to explore that, I'd have been much better off. I wouldn't have spent 8 fucking years in a transition hole and had to go do ayahuasca to fix it,
Right.
you know?
Well,
So
and so when we do our train the trainer stuff and talk a little bit more one-on-one when we're doing conferences and stuff, it's just like this has become a bigger and bigger part of my message that I've started to share from a personal standpoint, let alone the YFR standpoint, is that letting people know that y'all are more than X, whatever X is for you. Because we hang our hat, we hang our coat, we hang everything on that. And that's a slippery and dangerous slope when one, we could be medically removed from it. Two, somebody else has complete control over it. Three, we don't even have complete control over it. Like there's certain things in our lives that we as people have complete control over, and our jobs, our station in life is not necessarily one of them. And so if we're hanging everything on that, that's a scary and dangerous spot to be. But to your point, when we're in these jobs and in these professions, we have to. At some point, we have to. Like honestly, otherwise, the jobs are fucking hard, and what we see and what we deal with, we have to. And so, but at the same time, I do try really hard to remember to remind people like you're a fantastic husband, dad, neighbor, social digital marketing, business running, tactical. Like you all have so much more. Like you can grow a sweet beard or good hair, whatever it is. Like you're more, but whatever it is, you are more than. And so
yes,
to start with that, like because our tagline at YFR is we want to serve our community from recruitment through retirement. Because we in the public safety world, our retirees, I mean, There's no numbers to prove this, but I bet our retirees are dying by their own hand at a much faster rate than our active folks. I'm sure that number it's true for military veterans.
Yeah, that's 100% true for veterans. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and I'm going to argue it's because of that. It's because of that. And it's the same thing in the fire service, no joke. And it's like the beat goes on, right? Like my last shift, set my boots down. I won't lie, I cried. Hugged the company officer that was taking my spot for the oncoming shift, because it was like the end of an era. Same time thing with you guys. Like I was in medical school, EMT school, uh, 19 years old. So that's my life is fire service, EMS world. My first full-time job after college was full-time firefighter. I was a volunteer while I was in college, right? Like, so that was that same storyline. And so that's all I've known. My dad was a firefighter before me, so it's generational at that point. You get into whole like generational trauma, what that's all about. And was having that goodbye moment with that guy. Tones go off, door opens up, they roll out the door, and it, not that I'm forgotten at that moment, but they now have a story that I'm no longer part of. That fast, that etch a sketch begins to shake, and you're not part of it. The beat goes on, but that's
Yeah,
part of it,
the machine keeps working without you, man. And
right?
that's a hard pill to swallow, because the whole time you're doing that, you feel like you're such an integral part of that machine, because you have leaders telling you, I couldn't have made this happen without you. You're making, those split-second decisions that save lives or whatever, and you're being praised for it, rightfully so. So you just find yourself becoming attached to the machine, falsely thinking that it can't operate without you. And then, like you said, man, that's a terrible picture to have stuck in your head. It's like, bells are going off, trucks pulling out of the station, and you're standing there with your dick in your hand, like, holy shit, this is really over.
Yep.
Because I know what that feels like too, man. I watched those dudes deploy again without me, and I did 4 of them. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like that's unheard of for an infantryman, really. I find that out as I talk to more and more people. But it's like, oh, I thought I was a part of this, and they can do this without me. Like, how do you swallow that pill?
Yeah. That's where like people that aren't in this world, aren't in these worlds, they just don't understand. And we hear it all the time. And that's why we need culturally competent X, Y, or Z clinicians, therapists, apps. From your guys' standpoint, I'm sure you're vetting all the clinicians and therapists and everybody else y'all are working with before they hit the red button. Because you just go to talk to Joe or Sally off the street who's never dealt with any of this, and they have no fucking clue, like none. Like this, because it's so ingrained in all of that, and that's where our biggest competitors, honestly, are like the local yoga teacher. They're like, oh well, the fire chief's wife teaches yoga. Can't she just teach us yoga? No, she can't, because she's not the culturally competent tool to teach your specific group of people. Just like you guys are the culturally competent group of people. You're not, don't take this offense. I hope I'm going to make this a super good compliment. Y'all are not the tech wizards, VC venture capitalists behind the scenes hoping to make a quick buck because you can sell an app for $50,000 because you see the trend. Like, you guys are doing this for all of the right reasons, the same reasons our organization exists, because you just want to fucking help people. Like, I really like what you said. We want to cut through the red tape. We want to cut through the bullshit and just get to work. Like,
Yep.
yeah,
Just
Yeah, that's
work, man.
exactly it.
Just boots on the ground, saving people's fucking lives is all that matters. Money doesn't matter. It's just a tool to further the cause, man.
yeah. And like we've said, like
100%.
like whether we like it or not, we live in a capitalist society. Y'all's organization needs money to keep the lights on. Ours needs money to keep the lights on. That's just the reality of it. But I'll be honest, I thought for a long time being a nonprofit was a weakness for us, because I saw the VC money going around. I saw the for-profits like out there selling at these big conferences and everything else, like with their fancy booths and that kind of stuff. And honestly, in the last week or so, it's dawned on me, it was like, you know what? I think being a nonprofit actually is our strongest suit possible, because we can go in there and get to work without having to worry about making sure that the shareholders are happy or that we've met our quarterly earnings report or whatever it is. And like, if somebody gives us money or donates to your organization or our organization, they just know that it's to do the mission. It's not to go feed anybody's pockets or buy us yachts and private jets and that kind of stuff. Like, it's to do the work. And so actually now, like, it just kind of spun around on me this week, that I think it's actually a stronger suit for organizations like yours and ours to be in that nonprofit mindset.
No, absolutely, man. Because and a big thing that we look at it as from too, right? Like at the end of the day, you're gonna need money to get the right people in place. You're gonna need money to do those certain things, right? Because everybody's time is valuable. You know what I mean? And we haven't done anything up to that point. But we know if we want to take this to the next level, we're gonna have to do some of that stuff, right? But it's also it's not about making money for any of the core members that are here. And it's not about doing any of that. It's about not getting those phone calls anymore
Right.
from, people's families and different things like that. Like we just need to be better and we need to actually make a difference and an impact in this because even the whole 22 a day thing, like those numbers they're so low compared to what really is out there, man. And that's just what's being reported,
Right.
let alone what's not. And we
Yeah,
just got to be better for
well,
our
because
community.
yeah, and I mean the reality is whether we like it or not, like the suicide numbers in public safety are grossly underreported. I mean, we're gonna argue the same thing with veterans, and whether this is hard for general public to hear, whether they like it or not, we're good at killing ourselves. We are
We're
because
re-
we
we're
we
really
know,
good at it.
and this sounds weird, but we know all the ways to do it. We've seen all the ways to do it. We've dealt with all the ways to do it, and so like, and there's
Can I
ways, and
toss a
they're
number at you real quick?
yeah, and there's ways real quick. There's ways to do it that make it look like an accident. So everybody's like, was that actually a suicide? Anyway, what's the weird? Yeah, throw that number out
It-
there.
when you think about this, we lost 7,050 something to the global war on terror from 2001 to when we pulled out last year or 2 years ago, I guess now. We've lost 30,113 by their own hand, 4 times as many as we lost in active combat.
400, 4 times, 4x.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's just as of 2021. So you've got 3 years of data that's not included in those
Right.
numbers. And
Right.
I'm sure because
As
those articles I pulled those numbers from report that they are trending up every year.
right, not down, not down. Well, and public safety, so you guys are aware, is in the same boat. We're between 2 and 3x. So what you see is like line of duty death reports were grossly underreported at 2 to 3 times in the suicide, and that's like military has done a great job popularizing, quote unquote, that 22 a day number. Like nobody, I don't think folks realize that it's prevalent in the public safety world. You got, unfortunately, you guys have done better marketing, for lack of a better
It's
term,
Yeah.
it's
marketing
sad to
that.
say, right? But yeah, because when I learned about the first responder population, I was like, shit, I'm completely alienating a whole community, like just kind of taking over trying to fight for veterans. But that's the community I'm a part of. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Like how do I advocate for first responders? Well, hello, QRF Up. Thank you for letting me do that because as far as I'm concerned, we all need help, man.
Yeah,
Well,
and the jobs aren't much different,
No,
right? Like they're not, right? Like we're all in the civil servant industry, right? We're going over to do a job, and that's exactly what it is. It's a fucking job, and no different from y'all, right? Like obviously, we all drank the Kool-Aid a little bit at some point, you know what I mean? And we understood that we had a higher calling, and we did it, but we also did it because that's what and how we put food on our table.
mhm.
That's how we serve. That's what we did. And you know what I mean? Like everybody and it goes back into the whole, thanking everybody for their service and thanking, anybody for any of that stuff too. And it's a hard pill to accept sometimes as well because majority of the people within the United States don't know what they're thanking you for. And the same thing goes for, the first responder industry. You know what I mean? Look at how negatively we look at police officers now.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, talk about 40, 50 years ago, you wouldn't dare try to pull the crap they pull on cops now.
No.
You know what I mean? Because there was a line of respect there. That's gone.
Yep.
And people have just realized that it's easier now to just glorify something rather than actually fix the problem.
I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day because our customer base before pre 2020 was probably 80% fire service, 20% law enforcement.
Yep.
Post 2020, for all of the reasons that everybody remembers about 2020, we now serve probably The numbers will bear this out. 80% law enforcement, 20% fire service.
Yeah.
And so that pendulum has swung completely. Uh, and honestly, for many, many, many different reasons, the spotlight was shown very, very brightly that we do have a mental health wellness crisis in public safety in America in 2020. And a lot of that was shown on law enforcement. And so now people still have this negative view of law enforcement, but we are in the trenches, in these agencies, working with these individuals on a daily basis. And my heart pulls for my brothers and sisters in blue, because what people don't realize is like we can see the reasons in the writing on the wall as to why these things happen, because they are human beings just like the three of us. They have the same literal operating system just like the three of us. And by that, I mean our mind, body, and nervous system. And when you get to a breaking point for anybody, your body, mind, and nervous system does some weird fucking shit. And so we can almost see that happening. Not even we almost can. We can see this
Yeah.
happening because we're not trained in how to get our mind, body, nervous system regulated, stop the amygdala hijack, understand what's happening within us so that we can respond outwardly appropriately. And so that's where we come into play is like we're inside these agencies. And this is why we work mostly with law enforcement now, because we're teaching them how to regulate their nervous systems through not just the bad calls. Like the bad calls our body does pretty good with, but it's the constant dripping, the tapping against the nervous system for 1, 3, 5, 10, 15, 30 years that our bodies are terrible at. And then everybody's like, well, shit, Joe's never acted like that before. I don't know what happened to Joe. Like, well, if we just pull back the curtains a little bit, we know exactly what's going on. But Joe's never been trained on how to fucking deal with it until there's people out there like you guys and us that step in and say, hey, did you know that we can do better? We can do things differently. There's actually training that we can put in place so that Joe doesn't have to go through what Joe just went through ever again. Like
Right.
that's
Well, and
it's
that's exactly what I was talking about earlier too, about, we compartmentalize, right?
right.
Because we keep doing our job day in and day out. And that doesn't change because we've got to show up. You know what I mean? And we got to show up and we got to do it. Because if we don't, nobody else is. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where we compartmentalize and put so much away, right? And we just box it up. We set it out on the front porch and we walk inside and we go live in there.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But eventually you can't walk through that door anymore because there's so much shit piled up there. And these careerists who are going through this and going through it just repetitive over and over and over. And everybody wonders why everybody's so jaded and so angry and just bitter to everyone around you. It's like, well, we're not dealing with all the boxes, man. Like
Right.
we've got to take time to unpack those. We've got to do that. And that's something that, we're trying to push on as well too, is doing some corporate outreach as well. Um, excuse me, but also getting out there and just letting people know like, hey, like these are some of the signs and symptoms of some of this stuff. This is what we can do to be proactive about it instead of reactive all the
Correct.
time.
Yes.
Right. Like, and I think that's where you guys come into play hugely because wouldn't it be great even if we could get you out to like a couple corporate retreats and a couple different things because there are so many people out there that need that help and just need to be pushed into the right direction. You know what I mean? And whether that's through, a fire department or a police department or, you know, any major company that has other people they're serving from these backgrounds because everybody loves hiring a veteran, right? You know what I mean? But nobody knows how to appropriately employ one either. You know
Mm.
what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Because it comes with some strings, dude. Like we got
Sure.
trust issues, we got certain things done. You know what I mean? Like that's why there's, you know,
Yeah.
why most of us become entrepreneurs because we have trust issues. I'm gonna work harder than everybody there. I promise you, I will outwork you. Like I will. Adam and I try to outwork each other all the time, and it's getting to be pretty hellish at this point.
Well,
But you know what I
I need
mean?
to be
Like,
brought into y'all's group text message thread because
dude, I don't know if you want
You
that.
don't get responses in there because we're both working.
Yeah, pretty
I
much. Yeah.
appreciate that. So
Like,
I'm 2 hours behind. So you guys, I'll be waking up and be like, fuck, we're already been up for 4 hours.
right.
So
It's usually phone calls. It's not really group
Yeah.
text because Mark has a terrible habit of not answering your texts.
Look, man, I get a lot of texts a day. I
Hey,
have two
I
cell
get it.
phones. Um, like I've got my work phone and then I've got like my personal phone and somehow everybody has all my numbers. So everybody's just texting and calling all my numbers all day long. Um, yeah, man, I get at least 200 texts a day.
yeah,
Like, and it's outlandish. So between like business and then all the nonprofit stuff, like, dude, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So
No. People don't realize the amount of effort it takes to run your own company. They have no clue. I mean, honestly, like, but again, Olivia and I were just talking about this because we live our lives very differently. She's just trying to have, just trying to meet a new mom. We just moved to Albuquerque, so she's trying to meet make a friend.
yeah,
And this woman was like, "Oh yeah, like my husband just goes to work. He works 40 hours over at the labs, and I'm just a stay-at-home mom." And Olivia was like, what do you do with all of your time? Like, like, what do you do with all of your time? I wouldn't even know what to do if I was just like a quote a stay-at-home mom. Like, and not to nothing, don't hear this wrong, folks. The stay-at-home mom is a job, but when you're running your own business, like she right, like between
yeah,
our internal Slack messaging channels, the emails, the
yep,
text messages, uh, we go to bed every night with a toddler and a puppy, and then our businesses exhausted
yeah,
every single day. Like
yeah,
it's like, how the fuck are you? Like
yeah.
I wouldn't even know
We
what to do with if I had time to like
we talk
go to the
about that
pool and
all
go
the
swimming
time.
or whatever.
I know how everybody is always like, oh, you get to make your own schedule. You get to, work from home if you want to. You get to do that. It's like, yeah, guys, like that's really great. But that means that I never stop fucking working. Like, I don't know if you guys realize that or not. Like, I'm up till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and then getting back up at 6 and going right back to work, dude. Like it never stops.
Nope.
Like, we're working on the weekends. We're working like I don't get a day off. Like, what is that?
Right.
Like, I haven't taken a
Yeah.
day off in 6 months, man. Like,
Yeah. I mean, the
like
one
that.
opportunity the three of us had to do a podcast for this, because this is going to come out in a couple of weeks, is a Sunday afternoon. Like,
Yeah.
so for those of us that think we're doing this between 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, like this is being recorded on a Sunday afternoon. So the work continues, right?
Yeah,
To
because
connect with you.
particularly when you're doing shit like this is all you want to do anyway. Like you said, what do you do with your time? Like, have you sat down to try to watch TV lately just to try and recharge? It's like, I don't want to do this. I want to go back in there, sit at my computer, and knock some more work out.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I mean, people would be sadly disappointed if they saw behind the curtain in our house, because it's that same thing. Like, we may have the TV on in the background to say that we're watching a TV show, like at
Yeah.
like 9 o'clock at night, just for background noise. But we're both still building a course out or building
Yep.
affiliate links out or talking to
Yep.
people. Like
Yeah.
it's, yeah, like and every once in a while, like if it's an interesting show, we'll have to like actually hit pause and then get back to it. Like people, it takes us 2 hours to get through a 30-minute TV show. Let's be real. So
Yep.
that's the reality of it. That's the reality of
Yeah.
it. And that's also why I come to realize that not everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur. Like and that's cool. That's cool, because that's fine. It's hard.
Well,
So,
it's a lot of mindset too, and I think that's something that our communities really bring into play too. And again, it goes back to the mindsets of how to fix things, how do you view problem sets, how do you look at certain things? Like, okay, cool, man. Like, we're struggling to get the rent paid this month because we didn't get any orders out. What are we gonna do? Well, all right, let's go dump something over here. Let's open up this. Let's show up to this event. But you got to spend a little more money to make some more money back,
yeah.
right? So, and how do you do that? And so many people are just so fearful of it and just scared to take any of those risks and to do any of that. When you realize that it's all made up and it's fake anyway, like it doesn't matter. You can just go do it. Like
Yes.
everybody's so worried about it, like, oh God, like you guys are going to be late on rent, but you went and spent the money you had for rent to go to these events and go do this. Like, yeah, but like I made 10x on it. So, and then I came back and yeah, my rent was 5 days late, but I called my landlord and I'm like, hey, I'll be a little late,
Yep.
and he's like, okay, cool. I'm going to hit you the late fee. I'm like, all right, cool. Like,
40 bucks. I'll make that
yeah,
up. I'll buy
500
you two
like,
beers, you know?
right?
Like
Like, not in my building, it ain't 40 bucks. Like, but
no. Well,
no,
and
man, it's
that's it. Like I just approved our marketing, our COO the other day. She's like, "Hey, I'm gonna double down on our ads we're launching our an online course. In fact, by this time this comes out, it'll have just launched our second round of it." And no joke, I pulled up the bank account and it was like, I don't know that we're gonna make payroll. Like we've got about 1 month of runway. Like for those that are listening to this in a couple of weeks, don't worry, you got paid, so you know exactly how this story ends. Uh, uh, but when I pulled up the bank account, I was like, shit, like there's literally $11,000 in there. Because people take this idea like that because we're a well-polished machine, a well-organized company, we have built the infrastructure out for the last 5 or 10 years that like we must have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in the bank. The reality is that literally when I opened the bank account this week, there was $11,000 in there for yoga for first responders. And knowing that we've got payroll and that kind of stuff, she goes, do I have permission to run this ad, double down on this ad, double it up? And I said, without hesitation, yes, go
Yes.
for it. Because in the short term, between now and the end of that runway is the launch of this product. And so I'm counting on exactly that, Mark, that by doubling down on the marketing and the advertising, that we'll bring in 10 to 12 extra people that we wouldn't have
Yep.
before, and that the price of this course at $1,200, like that will pay for everybody's payroll to get through.
Right.
And then by the stroke of grace, by leaning into that, because this is how it works. So too, you fellas know this. I have a feeling you believe in this. That because of that, by seeing our worth, no joke, the following day, a check from our Stripe account gets deposited in the bank account that I had lost track of from something previously. And so all of a sudden there's enough money to make payroll for 2 months. But
Nice.
I didn't run scared and say, no, don't run the ad. Don't double down on it. Like, because part of me had that fluttering in the heart, like shit, instead of doubling down on it, maybe we should pull the ad because we're going to need every penny we got. But it's like, no, like the right strategy is to double down on that. And
Yep.
those are the kinds of decisions that you make when you're running business that most people are
They
not ready
run scared
for.
from it every time.
Well, it's the ability to bet on yourself,
Yeah.
right? It's the belief in yourself that you can make it happen, man. Like, and when you believe in yourself like that, then the doors start to open for you, and shit really does magically happen, like that check falling into your account that you lost track of. It's
Right.
crazy. That's how I'm here now. I shouldn't be sitting as a director of recruiting for a nonprofit that I think is going to change the world, right? Like, there's no way. I'm just a dumb infantryman. Well, I bet on myself, and now the doors have opened.
No, no, it's so cool. I'm just noticing something on both of y'all's videos. And so I'm going to pull this out. People that are just hearing this. So we put our podcast up on YouTube. For those that are listening on Spotify and those other places, you can check out YouTube if you want to see what ugly mugs are talking on all of our shows. It's probably why we all have voices for radio. But no, kidding. So y'all both have malas on. You both have beads on your wrists.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't use malas and that kind of stuff in our yoga practice at all. We actually steer away from all of that spiritual stuff because we cut a fine line between neuroscience and public safety. Like that's our lane, that's our mission. I'm just noticed. But situational awareness have picked up on that for both of y'all's wrists, and so I'm just curious. Dive into it for me if you don't mind. Just because obviously that's a very traditional thing from the yoga world, and people don't realize that. And then all of a sudden they show up in other practices and other ways. And so both of you are men of purpose. It's not by accident that you're wearing those. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, man. You want to go first, Mark?
Go ahead, Adam. You got it.
Yeah, dude, mine, honestly, I've only had mine for about a year when I went to Peru and did the ayahuasca ceremony, and I bought it from the Peruvian people that facilitated it. And that was my spiritual awakening, man. And it very much means something to me. I never take it off. It's been with me. And it was the one thing out of all the stuff they're trying to sell you that really resonated with me, that I could kind of just take that experience and just keep it with me. And I think it holds a lot of the universe's power, which is kind of what I believe in. You know, the universe, the higher power is what I call it anyway. So kind of just having it with me all the time and there to guide me.
Yeah. Yeah. See, Mark?
Yeah, man. So I go back and forth a lot with a lot of stuff too. And for me, it's about balance, right? And you have to find balance in so many things in life, right? And finding balance is very, very difficult. So mine are kind of that grounding effect for me, with finding balance. And I actually have a couple different sets. I do rotate through them depending on what my mood is for that day, and where my mental space is. And throughout my mental health journey, like every morning I wake up and the first thing I do is I go do a meditation. Like every morning I go and do that. And I suck at meditating, to be transparent, right? So I do a 10-minute guided meditation, But you know what I mean? Like I go and I put my headphones on. I have a dedicated space for it, and I go and I sit down and I meditate to get myself into that mind state for the day, and it works for me. So when it comes to finding those balance points and where I'm at in that time and space, because every day is different. We don't know what the day is going to bring us, but I know when I wake up, I'm like, okay, like this is where I'm at. You know what I mean? Like I do my wellness and my body check on me of where my body's feeling and where and what I'm doing in that moment. Um, and then I'm like, okay, like this is where I'm at. And then I, go and, get ready for the day and drink my coffee and get on and get down to my shop. But, it's one of those things for me that I find balance in it.
Yeah.
And it allows me to ground myself when I need to be.
Yeah. No, thanks both for sharing. Because I mean, it's just knowing that you're both men of purpose. I had a gut feeling that they weren't. It's not by accident. Um, and what you just talked about, Mark. So we talk in one of our classes about personal areas of excellence. We coin it as inspect, customize, maintain. So starting every day off, kind of like we do with our rig checks, with our equipment checks, we do all that
Hmm.
shit on our firearms, on every piece of gear that we've got. Like we inspect it every single fucking day to make sure that it's going to be operating effectively, right? And yet, how often do we inspect ourselves to make sure that we're going to operate effectively that day? And so, by you
Right.
starting that,
Never,
you're right,
never.
exactly, exactly. And so, by you starting your day like that, you're doing literally to pull. Like, I mean, for the Mark's never been to our classes. He picked this up somewhere else, but like you're starting your day by running through that inspection checklist. We then move into customize, and but what we mean by that is like that there's things that you're going to feel like I'm off in this sector today, like I'm off. So what can I customize in that sector? How can I adapt to make that bring that up a little bit, and then maintain because this kind of goes back to we are more than like every one of us has something in our lives that's going really, really well. Like whether you want to admit it or not, and most of us aren't very good at admitting that just because of the way we're actually literally wired is like maintain what's going really good. Like I really like that this how this is going in my life. Great. Maintain it. Like pay attention to it and maintain it, right? So inspect, customize, maintain. So I'm just like you both, Adam, you said you breath work and mindfulness training has been critical to your life. Mark, you've now said that too. So I'm just curious, Mark, I'm gonna go back to you first. Like where'd you pick that up? Like where'd you find that? And so Adam, you know what the question is coming your way in a minute. So
Yeah. So again, right, I went through 6 months of an outpatient therapy program and we did that. So we had yoga Fridays. And we would do that every Friday. Um, and we would go and it was about 3 hours throughout the day that we would go in and do that. And just figure out how to do that. We did a lot of meditation, a lot of breath work, as well as a dramatic amount of therapy, like
sure.
on top of it, right? Like, and it was in those moments too that you had to find yourself and center and ground because you were dealing and uprooting so many of those traumatic experiences, right?
Mhm.
And getting a hold of it and figuring out what that actually looked like, especially as you were going through a group program, because group therapy and individual therapy are two very, very different ball games.
Yep.
They're entirely different. So and that entire 6 month was a giant group program. So, I mean, and I tell anybody that in like 6 months, oh my God, like, yeah, man, like that's a lot. You know what I mean? But I unloaded, years and years and years of things that I had weighing on me. And then obviously other medical conditions as well too. So, because a lot of people don't talk about, how PTSD and TBI work in conjunction with one another, right?
Right.
So, and a little about me, right? Like I've got about 7 lesions on my brain internally and externally from, being in explosions and hitting my head and jumping out of airplanes for no good fucking reason. You know what I mean? Like I did it for years. You know what I mean? Like that's just what we did, right? But I've had a lot of concussions. I've had a lot of, brain injuries and those different things. And when you mix that and they start having mirroring side effects, you know what I mean? Like you start having real issues. And I found that I couldn't take a shower in a glass shower anymore because I had a beautiful glass shower in my previous house. I had this beautiful crystal chandelier that was over my amazing soaking tub and all this other great stuff. You know what I mean? It was fantastic. I shower in the spare room now. You know what I mean? Like, because something about the light reflecting off of that in my glass shower would set my TBI off, which would put me into a panic attack
Mm.
with PTSD. And because they would mirror each other, and that's why I kept getting stuck in my shower. That's why I kept getting in there, and I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't do anything. And it's learning those things about you and finding the balance that are with you. Because at the end of the day, you can't take any of that away anymore. You know what I mean? Like you're never going to get rid of it,
Right.
right? Like we took that darkness into ourselves, and when we were living in different places and doing different things, we took it in. It's part of us now, and that's okay, right? And we needed that to survive those situations. But now we just have to learn how to manage that and what our new normal is.
Yeah.
And we do that through balance, and we do that through, figuring out how to ground ourselves in those moments. And when we do feel like those, you know, intrusive thoughts or, racing mind syndrome or any of those other different things, we have tools to sit there and use against it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And Adam, like, how are you?
I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, man. I learned this stuff when I went on that ayahuasca journey.
Okay,
I learned that in
but
Terapoto.
so but rewind that a bit, because like taking that journey isn't something that everybody thinks of doing. So there's a missing step between that taking
Yeah.
that taking that journey and
But
like
like,
even learning.
how did I end up there? Dude,
Yeah.
I was in a really bad place, man. I did. I spent like I said, 8 years transitioning, just not doing it well at all, ready to check out, miserable, depressed, fat, so fat. I've lost 100 pounds in a year. Just I knew that I didn't want pills from the VA. I watched all of my buddies turn into zombies. And so, you
Yeah.
know, I just kind of I kept kicking the can down the road, right? Like I'll start going to the gym tomorrow. I'll start losing this weight tomorrow. I'll start a better diet tomorrow. And for me, that tomorrow was never coming. Tomorrow was I'm gonna sit on the couch and scroll YouTube for, 14 hours instead of do anything productive with my life. And I had saw a podcast where a special operator had gone and done ibogaine and 5-MeO DMT. And then he had a conversation with his wife about it, about all of the things that changed inside of him. And I immediately started looking for ways that I could go do this. And I found out pretty quickly that a lot of the veteran charities that are out there that sponsor soldiers and military members to go do this are catered to special operations forces, which I was not. I was just a leg. So somehow that charity that I mentioned, found me, called me, said I could go, sent me, and through all the integration work before and after, I learned about all of this stuff: the breath work, the gratitude practice, the abundance mindset, the grounding. Through taking the ayahuasca, like Mark said, it returned me to the balance that's
Mhm.
supposed to exist within us between the light and the dark. And so I just try to be present every day with myself and mindful of how I'm feeling and what's going on in my head and how I'm thinking about certain situations. My biggest thing I'm trying to overcome still is driving and people pissing me off when I drive, right? Like having an outburst because somebody drives like a fucking moron and then having to catch myself in the moment and be like, hey, what are you doing, dumbass? Like you moved past this. This isn't a good expenditure of energy. Let it go instead of letting it ruin my whole day. It's over in 2 minutes now because
Mhm.
of those tricks, right? If I feel that anxiety attack coming on, I have a really simple breath work practice. 4 count in, hold for 4, release for 4, hold at the bottom for 4, do
Yep.
that 4 times, and man, my heart rate goes back to normal. My head clears up. You know, it doesn't ever really take more than one cycle for me anymore. Mark spoke to meditation, how he's bad at it. I don't think he's bad at it at all. There's nothing wrong with doing a guided meditation. Meditation is a lot of things. It's working a puzzle. It's folding paper for origami. It's you can see my plants back here. It's
Mhm.
it's managing your house plants, right?
Right.
Anything that allows your mind to focus on one task and be present is basically meditation.
Yes.
I also do yoga a couple of times a week. However, that's been kind of off and on again since I had a back surgery in January, right? But I understand the benefits behind yoga, paying attention to my diet, right? And gut health and how important that is to us, right? All of these things I learned from that amazing charity that I credit with saving my life and allowing me to get to do this work with this nonprofit and you know, just be a leader and an example for those of us in our community and show them that like if a mediocre soldier like me can overcome all of those things, you can too.
Yeah. I mean, it's so powerful. And you hit on another thing, like that's so important for folks to hear is like you're like I was just an infantryman, I was just a leg, I'm not special operators, and a lot of things are catered towards that. For some reason there's this like trauma Olympics out there that a lot of everybody's like, oh, I got to have that level of trauma or that bad experience in order to have these symptoms, and so they're like I shouldn't like, and then also there's a shame like I shouldn't be feeling this way because I'm comparing myself to their experience, you know. That's quite frankly bullshit to its fullest degree. I mean, but it's real, but it's real.
I did that a lot.
Yeah, oh,
I
of
did that a
course.
lot.
Right.
I did
Uh,
that. I was a victim of that. Like, you know, thinking, oh, well, you know, their careers were so much more glorious than mine was, and they saw so much worse shit than I did. I still have a tendency to do that a little bit today, right? If I get an opportunity, I'm like, there's probably somebody who needs this spot more than I do. And it's like, no, you need this spot because it allows you to help more people because you're
yes.
helping yourself.
Yes, exactly right. And there is no trauma Olympics. There is no better or worse trauma or anything like that. Like if you're anybody in any of these professions, the seat is for you, period. Full stop. Like utilize the resources around you because that's why we're here. That's why all of us on this phone call are here. So utilize it.
You're Your worst day of your life is exactly that. It's your worst day of your life. It's not to be compared to anybody else's. It's the best advice I ever got because only you carry that perspective of your worst day of your life with you. Nobody else carries that with them.
Right. Yeah. No, powerful stuff. Uh, as we're rounding towards the home stretch, just because I know y'all are super busy, I did put this on the clock for an hour and a half. Uh, I do want to hear, since you both do run your own businesses as well. Um, I want to hear. So we got a teaser of Gray Tactical, we got a teaser of Strategic Veteran, but I want to give you both an opportunity too to like share a little bit more about your individual endeavors as well. Again, because we are all more than. Um, and also, just real quick, you can still do yoga. And part of our protocol, just so y'all are aware, because I have a feeling this conversation is just the beginning of all of this conversation. While we are rooted in traditional hatha yoga, our foundation is what we call tactical breath work. It all starts with the breathing and the breath work. We do the asanas or the postures, as we call them, to literally process the stress hormones that have been living inside of your body until you actually process them out in some kind of physical movement. And then we end with what we call a neuro reset, which is the broccoli and the brownie, I hate to say, but it's mindfulness meditation practice. At the end, it's not just lay in Shavasana for 3 minutes and let your mind wander. It's literally single point of object focused meditation. So we're sprinkling that in. And then as we're doing that entire class, we actually drop in some cognitive behavioral therapy as well. So we start to rewire the brain while it's under a stress-induced load to see that stress-induced load as a challenge versus a threat. And so we start to rewire the brain around that. And so that's where, and then obviously culturally competent on top of it. And so when I said earlier, like, oh, just because your girlfriend does yoga, she can't teach this to the guys. Like it's something completely different because of how we do it and how we approach it. So I just want to let you guys know, because this is our first conversation together. Like we do how we come at this concept of what yoga, quite frankly. But that's how we tailor it in and then bring it in. So it's job specific for folks' job. Because you can use this not only to downregulate, but you can also use it to perform better on the jobs as well. Better decision making under stress is the goal. So, but Adam, you're not muted, so you're up first.
I hate talking about my own company, man.
I know, but you gotta blow your own horn once in a while. So
I know.
what
So
is Strategic Veteran? What was it? How did it start? What's the concept?
It started because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, trying to figure out how to be an entrepreneur, building a network on LinkedIn, and somebody was like, "You should be the strategic veteran." Throw up the little salute emojis next to your name. That's truly who started it. If you're listening to this, I apologize. I don't remember who you are. From that, my paid
So
community.
it was a stranger that just recommended it,
Yeah,
or
somebody
a
engaging
connection.
with a
Yeah, yeah,
somebody
cool.
engaging with my post
The power of
and
social
the back and
media.
forth.
Yeah.
But through that became a podcast where I had this idea that the path back to purpose through for veterans is through entrepreneurship, which then expanded into entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship because there's a lot of free resources out there to get you some pretty high level certifications that will do some really good things for you in the corporate world. If because like we talked about earlier, entrepreneurship's definitely not for everyone. However, I'm a firm believer that it is very clearly the path back to purpose for us as we transition. And so out of all of that, my paid community, the Stronghold, was born because I saw all the Facebook groups, the veteran Facebook groups. I've been a member of Facebook groups when I was in flight school, asking questions and getting ripped to shreds and called a fucking moron and an idiot because I should know these things, and just really got turned off to the industry. So I had this idea that, put a little skin in the game, connect with like-minded people in the Stronghold, network with people. You'll learn from people, get insider tips, and build your own thing. Learn how to do it, and do it without judgment. Do it where a group of people are going to love you and give you actionable, really good advice. And so that's what the community's about. But my main focus right now, man, is we need 15,000 responders and over 2,000 mental health care professionals for QRF Up. So really recruiting for QRF Up has become my singular mission in life. I'm looking for mental health care professionals. I'm looking for veterans and first responders to get involved. I'm cold calling colleges, trying to get masters of social work program volunteers who need hours. This week, I'm going to start calling corporations, asking them to open their wallets and give us money because, we're all doing this for free. We have no money as a nonprofit right now. So it's really the work of, 5 or 6 really high quality individuals who, this really means something to, volunteering, like Mark said, 80 hours a week, 100 hours a week. It never stops, really. I'll get calls from Ram, I'll get calls from Mark at midnight, and I always answer them. If I miss them, I call them right back, that kind of thing. Like we really just want to get this out there
Mhm.
so that it changes, the face of mental health care for our veterans and first responders. And oh, by the way, once we nail that, we're going to open it up to other marginalized communities who suffer for the same things, right? Like it's not exclusive to one community. We just have to start somewhere. And
Yes.
why not start where the problem's the worst?
Yeah. No, that's powerful. And something I was really impressed by at our initial call with Ram and some of the other team members a few weeks back is that y'all, because of your past, because of the way you think, that you guys have your numbers nailed down. Like whenever we asked a question or just like that, you know your targets, you know your metrics, you know the reason why behind those targets, those metrics. And a lot of people don't have that. They believe in this, we're doing something good. Okay, great. But what are you actually doing? Like literally like tell me what you're actually doing. And you guys have always had like those numbers nailed in. And so when you can say we need 15,000 and 2,000 of these specific people, like that's impressive, man. Like you guys, it's on the board somewhere. Like I have no doubt that and it probably even is on that whiteboard right behind you. Like these are my targets that I'm working towards hitting, and this is how many I've got today. So super cool. I mean,
And
that's powerful.
I need about 14,995 more responders, and I need about what 20 what 19,997 therapists, something like that. I need a lot, man. I need help. I need help from everybody. If you're listening, if you have contacts, if you want to donate, just buy some merch, right? Like there's plenty of ways for everybody to help, because it's been like the question I'm getting a lot lately is, I'm not a veteran or a first responder, how can I help? Man,
Yep.
buy a t-shirt, buy a
Yep.
t-shirt, buy a hat, buy a coffee mug,
Yep.
share a reel. Just share a reel. It takes 2 seconds. You probably spend half your day on social media anyway. Just share the reel with somebody to get it in front of their eyes.
Yep.
There's 19.6 million veterans in the country. They can get this in front of all of them.
Right. Yeah. No, that's Super cool, man. Uh, I, I love, I'm not, this might not be the end of Adam on the episode. I don't know yet, but Mark, I'm feeling you're going to segue this in the same kind of way. Give folks real quick hit on Gray Tactical though,
Yeah.
because you alluded to it earlier.
Yep.
Give us a little bit more
So,
about what it is.
yeah, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Qrf Tactical. So we are a very compliant manufacturing facility out of Georgia. We create carriers, we create systems and other tactical accessories and equipment that we have for sale for international sales to compete in the actual strategic defense of the United States, as well as we have a national sales program for not only the tactical space, but as well as to the fitness space and competitive shooting space as well. We've got a bunch of different product lines coming out. And we are also in the midst of a very, very in-depth, very large merger. And anybody that's ever, went and got an MBA or has gone through a merger knows how much time that takes and effort that takes. Um, so But yes, the goal for Gray Group was, I guess, when I came into it, and if you can kind of see the logo on my hat, right?
Mhm.
Like product placement, I got to do it. But you know what I mean? It's one of those things that, yep, see, you know what I mean? Yeah,
Right?
right. Like we're all good at it. But it's for me, it was how do we figure out how to operate in that gray, right? And we've got the light, we've got the dark. We all know that. It's all comes back to balance, like we talked about before. So, like Gray Group for me is how do we cut through the red tape? How do we operate in the gray to actually get things done? And for us, right? Because to be honest, I had no desire to be in the tactical space at all. An opportunity fell in my lap that a friend reached out and asked for help, and I said, okay, I'll do it. You know what I mean? And I committed monetarily, dramatically monetarily. Um, you know what I mean? Like, but here we are, and we're in it to actually make a dent and change in the market. And we've created an actual weight vest or, a tactical vest that can be worn that fits women. Anybody that does any of the CrossFit or anything like that, right? Like they don't make vests that fit women. They don't. And, in my house, mama matters, right? So like when she's getting hit in the chin with her, metal plate that she's got in there trying to do, kipping pull-ups or whatever, right? Like that's not good, So we're working with a lot in the functional fitness space, and then as well as outfitting police departments, fire departments, ambulance crews, and other places along those lines, and then as well, obviously, like foreign military aid and different packages that we're shipping in that realm. So, but you guys can check us out. We're at www.grey grouptactical.com. And check us out. We've got a bunch of stuff on there. We are very compliant materials. Our carriers are actually machine washable. We're the only ones that can do that. We've cracked the code on it. And they're comfortable. So we're just trying to make a difference in the industry. But again, with that too, anybody that works with Gray or does anything like that, because at the end of the day, I'm in charge of it and I get to make the decisions. Fools on them. You know what I mean? You're going to support the nonprofit entities that we're supporting and we're raising and building. So any events that we show up to, we have Qrf Up out there. We also support a couple other nonprofits as well. That we take pretty seriously too, right? The human trafficking issue within the United States is a pretty serious problem.
Mhm.
And we work with a couple of human trafficking organizations. If you guys check out any of our pages or our social media or anything like that, you'll see them out there, and they're there to actually make a difference too, right?
Yeah.
So, we're trying to do a lot. Eventually, we will have about 5 training centers across the United States that we are putting up. So it should be Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Texas, and then potentially up in Wyoming is what we're looking at right now. But on each of those centers, we'd also like to put in an actual recovery center as well too. So, and that's going to be specifically for veterans
Mhm.
coming out and being able to do retreats and different things like that. And then also women and children of domestic violence, sexual violence, and also for human trafficking victims.
Wow.
So we also have an outreach program for school shootings, right? Like nobody likes to talk about it, but it's a problem in our country.
Hmm.
So, we're doing an aftercare program for victims of school shootings, and other things like that. So we have a lot on the forecast, and we're getting a lot done. So, but the integration of our nonprofits and what we're doing here is truly the heart and soul of why we're doing it. And we're using our company to back a lot of this. You know what I mean? And which is
Yeah.
probably not the smartest business idea. I've been yelled at a few times about it, but you know what I mean? Like I don't have an issue with talking with our corporate bankers and with talking with those other connections that we have in the corporate world to get things done. Because it's exactly about that though. It's about figuring out how to work in the gray and actually make a change and make a difference. And that's what Grey Group is to me, and that's why I started it. And it's led me down this path that, I met Adam and we got to work in, QRF Up together. And we're getting this launched, and we're gonna save lives, man.
Mhm.
Like they hooked me so hard when they told me about the pilot. And they're like, hey man, we did this pilot. It was 90 to 120 days. We had 25,000 downloads and we stopped 1,128 suicides. Like, and think about that. That was one state.
Mhm.
Imagine what this can do nationwide.
Yep.
And if we're not
So cool.
supporting it and you're in our community, like go fuck yourself.
Yes.
Because like that's ridiculous, dude. And I'll be the first one to say it. That's why we're on podcasts, because we say mean things like that and people don't like it. But
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like that's the truth, man. Like this is a problem. Let's be better. Let's challenge what everybody else is saying about it and make a fucking difference.
It's not
Yeah.
a competition, man. We
No.
all got to work together. We
Yeah.
all got to work together. All our companies, all our nonprofits, we can all come together under the same umbrella to do the same fucking thing, man. There's no
Yep.
competition here.
Yeah. No, it's so amazing to honestly meet a couple of guys like you, because I like that you're preaching the same stuff that I preach day in and day out. And I've gotten myself kicked out of plenty of conferences and meetings because I've said the stuff that they don't want to hear because I punch them straight in the nose with it, and love it or hate it. But it's the reality. It's the reality of it.
You just
It's
call it like it is, man. You're
Yep.
just calling it
100%.
like it is. Just shoot straight, man. And that's what
100%.
it's about. Like we're here to save lives, you know? Like it's really that simple. When it comes down to it, you'll feel better about yourself for saving
Yep.
other people's lives. That's really all that matters.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
at
I'm
the end
sure
of the day,
it's
too, it
not going to
goes
come
right back
as,
to our responder program, though, too, right?
yes.
Like, I'm a responder, but you know what? I'm gonna have a bad day, and you don't know when that bad day is gonna be,
Nope.
right? So, like, yeah, I may be a responder. I may be going out and helping, X amount of people throughout the month or doing all these things until I have my bad day, and then I need somebody to come help me. And that's what this community is about. And if people aren't willing to accept that, like, dude, grow up.
Right.
Like, be better with this, because that is where we are all at. And if we can't rely on one another, what else do we have? Because the
Not a
world we
lot.
live in isn't getting any better.
I say we've seen that we've
Yeah.
seen the end of that story. We know how that one ends, right?
Yeah.
So continue to write the journey, write the book on instead of taking the path already known. So
Yeah.
my God, this is a fantastic conversation. Like I know how much both of you guys work, but I hope I have never had a podcast guest on. Like we're not very far into it either. We're only about this. You guys will be probably episode 30, 1 year into it, but I've never walked away from a podcast episode where I wasn't able to text the guys that I just had a conversation with, because it just gets real raw and we find like-minded people on this show. And so I have a feeling here, I don't have y'all's cell phone numbers, but if I did, I could probably text at least Adam, maybe not Mark. But I do have everybody's email addresses. So like I said, this conversation is legit. It's the beginning of the conversation between everybody, all the parties involved. And
I'll tell you how committed I am to recruiting. I will put my personal number out here so people can call me.
do it. I mean, yeah.
912-656-1917. If you want to be a mental health care professional, you want to be a responder volunteer, you want to donate money, you can't figure out how to get to the website, call me. Call me. I'll answer. I'll get to you. I promise. I'll call you back. If I don't answer, I'll call you. Call me. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, Adam. The commitment and dedication to what you guys do. Gentlemen, honestly, it's been an honor and a privilege to get to hang out with you and steal an hour and a half of y'all's time, because that matters. It's literally the only investment that we can't get back. We can always make more money, but we can never get 90 minutes of our lives back. And so I do know how big of an investment that is. And so I want to say thank you both for sharing that time with me, with our audience, with our organizations. And I have a feeling this is not the last time we're going to be talking to each other.
I hope not.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, definitely not, man.
Q,
We've definitely got more to work in and do some stuff, and we've got other programs and placement stuff for sure.
hell yeah, hell yeah. Well, until we talk again, both you guys stay safe out there. It's a crazy fucking world, but you guys are up to great stuff. QRF up, QRF up, not
Yep.
QRF up. But if that's how you remember it and it sticks in your brain, that's okay too. QRF up, cool. But it's been a pleasure, fellas.
Likewise.
Thanks, man. Super grateful.
Hey, before we go, I want to remind you that training your mental and physical health is incredibly important, especially for those working in high-stress jobs like first responders.
And if you're interested in learning more about yoga for first responders, visit yogaforfirstresponders.org for our on-demand training app, online course platform, in-person training, and more.
Like this podcast, subscribe, and give us a great review. We are so happy to have you part of the YFFR mission.